Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Virtual Voice. I'm Chris and I'm here with my friend Fernanda. How are you, Fernanda?
Hi, Chris. I'm good. Thank you. And you?
I'm doing well, thanks. So today we're talking about something that you and I, when we were creating our companies, we implemented pretty much from the get-go. And I've got to give credit to my friend Peter Martino. Peter Martino is a friend of mine from a prior job that I had before we start these companies. And he learned about EOS and traction from his job. And then he actually stepped out and created his own consulting business to help businesses implement the EOS in their business. So before I started the companies, he said, "Hey Chris, just let me know if you want to get together. Let's talk about the EOS." And I took him up on it, and then we had several long meetings to go through the EOS process. Right? Remember that?
Yeah, they were long meetings, but totally worth it.
They were long meetings, but if you look back at it, we are better now because we spent that time at the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So before we get into talking about the level 10 meeting, I want to kind of give a little bit of a background, right? So at the beginning of doing the EOS traction model, you go through this thing called the VTO, which is the Vision Traction Organizer. And with that, it makes you think through your 5-year plan, your 3-year plan, your 1-year plan, who your ideal customer is. You go through the exercise to come up with your core values, which we did, and we like core values are extremely important to us, and we talk about them all the time in our meetings. So the VTO process is kind of like the strategic target, right? You want to have this target you shoot for. And remember in Dallas, we went shooting, right?
Yeah.
And so we were shooting, and then you got the target downrange, and then you have your gun and you have your sights on the gun, right? Remember the
Yeah.
sights I was telling you about, right? So when you're focused, when you're shooting, you got to focus on your sights. You got to look at your sights and your targets in the background. But when you focus on your sights are in focus, but the target is kind of blurry a little bit. But you know you're going in that direction, right?
Yeah.
So the VTO is essentially the target. And then the level 10 meetings is your sites, your tactical meetings, making sure that you are going in the direction of your 5-year, 3-year, 1-year plans, right? So you need a target to shoot at, and that's what the VTO is. Once you get that going, and then you start implementing your level 10 meetings. And so level 10 meetings is just like a tactical meeting to help you meet your strategic objectives for your business. And so it's just not any meeting. There are rules for this meeting when you do it. So Fernando, what are some of these rules or guidelines that we need to follow for the level 10 meeting?
Okay, some rules that we have is first one, start on time. I think we always do that.
Hmm.
We have just like a devoted time for that meeting.
Yep.
End on time, same day every week,
Hmm.
same time every week, and same agenda every week.
Exactly. So we follow this. We do start on time. We end on time. We do have it on the same day every week.
Yes.
I think there was maybe a couple times the last couple of years where we had to cancel, whether it be from some kind of an emergency or something. I can't remember. But we're all dedicated to that meeting every Wednesday. We chose Wednesday for our meeting, Tuesday for our construction company. But we chose those days. We start at the same time. We follow the same process. We came up with some slides that we follow. And then the thing is, if you are just kind of wishy washy on the start time and the day, then your team is going to get this. You're going to condition your team to feel like it's not that important. But if you're strict with the time, you're strict with when you start and the day, they're going to take it seriously and they're going to get their deliverables in on time. And then the meeting is going to be uh, productive and helpful. So those are the rules. So let's break down what is included in the EOS. I don't know if I explained EOS. EOS is Entrepreneur Operating System. So that's what EOS stands for. What are the different areas or categories that we cover in the level 10 meeting?
Okay, so the first one, and I think it's the most fun of all
Yeah.
of them, is the checking. The icebreaker is just starting the meeting with personal checking, just like,
Hmm.
I don't know, a funny question or whatever, just to get that positive feeling in the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. We
Yeah.
actually there was a time I think we stopped doing the icebreaker. I can't remember why. And everyone's like, "Hey, we need the icebreaker." That was fun. It kind of like, got you out of the day-to-day thinking of work and distracted you. That way we can help direct focus to the meeting. And so that's what the check-in is for. I've been a part of meetings in the past and different organizations where we our icebreaker, our check-in was we all stood up. We all had 1 minute to just give a something good to say. How was your weekend? Or how was something good going on in work or your life or whatever it might be. It's 1 minute of you sharing something great. And then we all had 1 minute. We had a timer, and then after we're all done, we sat down and we started our meeting. So there's many ways you could do the check-in. We chose the icebreakers because when we're in the virtual world, it's hard to get to know each other because we're not sitting next to each other. But when you do the icebreakers and you ask questions, like what are some of the questions that we've asked in the past?
So just like some question that I've asked is like, what's your favorite food?
Mhm.
Um, a hard question that everyone said like, wow, that was a hard question. I think it was
Yeah.
um I can't remember. I think it was if you could change something of yourself, and I didn't ask that again. So I
Yeah.
think right now are simpler. And also it depends on how big your team is, because
Yeah.
if it's just a small team, you can ask a question like, so I don't know, what's the best part of your day and explain why.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just for a small group. But if it's a big group, like right now we have in meetings, it's just like, who's your favorite actress? And that's it.
Yeah, easy question to
So
answer,
yeah,
right?
it's the
Nothing that
questions.
requires thought. There are a few times we're like, man, Fernanda, I wish you would have given us a heads up on this one. We have to think about the answer for
Yeah.
this. But those are good questions too, though, right? Because it kind of draws out, it pulls out the inner thoughts of a person and it helps you get to know them a little bit better. So, but yeah, we love the icebreakers. We'll never stray away from that again. And if you need some help on some ideas on icebreakers, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. But so we go do the icebreakers and then we move into something else.
Okay, so after the icebreakers, we start with the scorecard. And yeah, it's just metrics, like for
Yep.
all the departments, that's the scorecard.
Hmm.
And I remember you mentioned that, and we're going to have another podcast about that, just like commander's intent and everything. I think it's
Yep.
kind of related here because
Yep.
those are the metrics that are really important, like
Yep.
for example, as it is mentioned, just like if you went out on vacation, what are the things that Chris would like to know from
Yeah.
that?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah. So for the scorecard, essentially it's the KPIs that we measure, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that in another episode. So you have your job description, you have what the job is, what the KPIs are, and a disc profile to go along with that. So the KPIs is what we go over in the scorecard. Now, the thing that I think like we could probably improve in is that when we go over the scorecard, we tend to get a little too detailed, right? Because you're really only supposed to spend about 5 minutes per section.
Yeah.
And then if there's more detail that needs to be discussed, it's supposed to go on the issues list. So it's tempting to go detail. Just make it clear to your team, hey, we're just covering the numbers. This is high level. If we have an issue because of one of the numbers, let's put that on the issues list to discuss later. And then sometimes those would be, just like, hey, we might have to have a separate meeting for this one, so that the marketing people don't have to listen to a finance problem or something like that, right?
Yeah, but it's good, I think, just like to know what other areas are doing.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
for example, it's cool when we hear about marketing and they're like, okay, so we got 2 Google reviews, like we got
Hmm.
more followers, or
Right.
just like for the person that talks with the tenants, oh, the tenant was happy with their unit or some things like that, are
Yeah.
encouraging just for all the team to know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I look forward to it because of I get to hear the feedback from the customer through the team. And sometimes it's feedback where we're like, okay, cool, we need to improve in these areas. We do get that a lot, but we also get a lot of positive feedback, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's how we've been able to get our 5-star reviews. But yeah, the scorecard is a very probably the important part in my opinion, because you're measuring the numbers, which is measuring the health of the company. But I think the next part is when you get more into the details, and what's that?
Yeah, so next one we have issues list. So here we identify the issue, we discuss the issue, and we solve it.
Mhm.
So that's it. Just like before the meeting starts, I tell Chris, like, hey Chris, you have any issues for the issues list? So that's our kind of our daily routine, or
Yeah.
weekly routine, sorry. So yeah, that
Yep.
do you want to say something about
Yeah.
the issues
So
list?
the issues list is, like Fernanda says, she'll reach out to me, say, hey, Chris, do you have any issues for today? The team is open and able to go into the issues list and put their things that they want to talk about as a team. But with the issues list, what we need to do is, and I think this is an area we need to improve in as well, is you have the issue, you have the comments or the notes that come out of the discussion, and then there's an action item, and there's only one person you could put on that action item. And then you need to follow up next week. Hey, where are we at on this? I think that's an area we can improve in on, but that's an important piece, right? Because those discussions, if there's no follow up and there's no discussion the following week to close the loop, then you just wasted your time talking about an issue you guys are not going to fix, right? So
Yeah.
that's important part too, is just identifying what needs to be done, who's going to do it, and then be committed to talk about it next week to follow up and close that loop.
Exactly. Just like what we have is last issues and just like
Yep,
in another slides and the new issues for this week. So I
exactly.
think that's helpful.
Yep.
And also, as Chris mentioned, just like having the team the freedom just to go there and put it like, for example, oh, I had this issue with this owner or this
Hmm.
tenant. I'm going to put it on the issues list because it's something that we can all talk about as a team.
Hmm.
And because sometimes, I don't know, the guy from marketing, the guy from sales could have some ideas on a
Right.
problem in finance, so it's good
Yep.
to have different perspectives
Yep.
about problems.
Right.
And so yeah, and then we have the announcements also that it's kind of related and just
Yeah. We'll,
like,
we'll at the end, I think we'll talk about like customizing, because we kind of customize our EOS a
oh
bit.
well, yeah,
Yeah. So,
you're
but
right.
after the issues list, what do we do after that?
So let's just wrap up. We just like Chris normally do a recap. So he's like, okay, so these are the issues. This is what we're going to do. Everyone knows what they're doing. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So then we rate the meeting. So and it's from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And yeah, we normally get nines and tens. So we're
Yeah.
doing something good
Yeah,
there.
I think I have to watch who I ask first, because if someone says 10 from the beginning, it kind of sets the tone for everyone else. So I got to do it randomly
Yeah.
from now on. But yeah, ideally you want to shoot for 8, 9, 10. If you get a 10, then that's like you knocked it out of the park, right? There is a perfect meeting. But when you rate the meeting, the team doesn't need to say why, right? Don't put them on the spot. If they say it's a 2, don't say, well, why do you say it's a 2? Just, okay, it was a 2. And then, maybe follow up later on, say, hey, that's kind of a low score. Was there an issue that we should be aware of that I didn't see, right? It helps drive conversation later on. Maybe that you don't have that in front of the entire team. But whenever we rate it, and we rate our training too, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
where people will, and if they want to say something, I'd let them say something. They don't have to. But a lot of times they'll say, "Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 today. We were able to talk about this, and this." So that gives me an opportunity, and I'm sure you too, Fernando. It's like, okay, this particular person likes to hear these things, right? And it's another
Yeah.
way of like, okay, I'm getting to know this person a little bit more. And if I need to encourage this person, I know what they're looking for. So I like the rating part, because it drives some of that conversation and getting to know people type thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that's essentially, after we rate our meeting, we're like, okay, hey everyone, we're done. Have a great day. If there's anything else, just let me know type thing, and then we check out. Um, but what I want to get into also is, you brought this up already, is you know, we follow the EOS, but we kind of customize it. So you can't say we follow it 100%. We made it our
Yeah.
own. And there's a couple of things that we do. So after we go over our check-ins or icebreaker, we review our core values. So we have our core values on the slide. Everyone looks at them, And we typically cover one core value a meeting and say, hey, like this week I had this over the weekend, I went for a walk, listened to a podcast, and something struck me on how I'm showing up for people, especially some customers. And, I had this like internal, like, oh, I got to do a better job at this because our core value is customer pleasure and service. And when I'm operating in that mindset, I'm not really operating according to our core values. So I shared that with the team this week, and there's a lot of different things that we do with that as well. But um, definitely keeping your core values in front of your team as often as possible is going to help reinforce that culture.
Yeah, and that's really good. I think it helps all the teammates. For example, like some situations that well, maybe we're far away from the training, but I don't know, there's a lack of communication. Like if I don't know, like you
Mhm.
mentioned that like, hey team, just remember our core values. I don't
Right.
know, always improving our teamwork. Like this situation happened, so let's stay as a team. Just like it helps. Like it
Yeah.
really does help to see the
Yeah.
core values.
Agreed. Yeah. And we also do it. So you have your level 10 meeting, which is kind of like a, high level company wide type meeting. But we also have like a D10 departmental 10 meeting. And we have that specifically for our maintenance department on Fridays. And we talk about, maintenance tickets, work orders, and then we talk about maintenance, how we're conducting maintenance on the operational side. And we follow the same format for the level 10. And we cover core values on that as well. So you can't get the core values in front of your people enough. If you can do it every day, that's great, do it. But at least during those meetings, it's very important to get that in front of your team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another thing that we do is just like announcements. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's pretty cool because like for example, if a team member, like for example, this team member that she was going to have a baby, she
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that in the announcement. So I think that's pretty cool. Just like uh, if you're if you're having an issue or you got just like achievement, either work, school, or
Mm-hmm.
family, you
Yeah.
can put there, and I don't know, we can talk about it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. The reason why we created this is because sometimes we were putting things on the issues list that weren't really an issue. There was no like
Yeah.
action items that came about it, right? So like someone's going on vacation or something like that. So we're like, all right, let's create just the announcements part. That way it just gives people awareness, but there's no action items. For example, hey, so and so's going on vacation next week. Just keep that in mind. If you need anything from this person, make sure it's done by this day. Or hey, Fernanda is going into finals this week and she's going to be super busy. So don't bug her, leave her alone, Um, babies, right? Having babies. Um, and it's also an opportunity to like just like with the babies thing, but everything else, like an opportunity to celebrate somebody. Like, for example, if
Yeah.
someone were to graduate from college or whatever, put that on the announcement. Say, hey, just want to say congratulations to so and so. They just graduated, blah blah blah. And it gives you as a leader an opportunity to really do a shout out to a team member in front of everyone, and it helps really build that like loyalty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And for example, there's times that the team doesn't put like they're on the announcements, but you always ask like, hey, does someone have any
Mhm.
announcements or any issues that they weren't there, but that
Yeah.
they want to discuss or just mention? And sometimes happens that it's like,
Yep.
oh, me, I have this, or as you mentioned, I'm going on vacation and on Friday, I'm taking Fridays off. So that
Yep.
way that way we are aware. Like for
Mhm.
example, I think it helped me. I think time I wanted to contact this person on the team, and I was like, oh, okay, so I remember they mentioned in the meeting they were going to get the day off
Yep.
this Friday. So I don't know, it helps. So
Yeah, it does. It helps get everyone on the same page.
exactly.
And it eliminates any kind of like unnecessary drama that comes from lack of communication, right? So it's definitely good to do that. But this is what we do, and we follow the EOS, customize it to make our own. We like it. The team likes it. It helps us understand what's going on in our company, And you're going to start this, and then as time goes on, you're like, you know what? I think there's something else we want to measure. There's something else we want to measure. We're doing that often, right? So
Yeah.
when our finance team started getting stronger, like, okay, I think there's a couple other numbers I want to follow on this one. And then marketing, right? So different marketing things. Okay, now we have a website and leads coming in. Okay, let's monitor those now. So you're going to add as time goes on, and don't feel it has to be perfect. Just start, get one going, read the book EOS. So there's two books I recommend. First one is Traction, and this is written by Gino Wickman, and he's the one that came up with the EOS system. So everything you want to know about what we talked about in this podcast is in that book. And another book that kind of supports it is this book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And I haven't read this book cover to cover. It's more like a resource. So I'll look at a chapter and say, okay, it helps with your organization and your structure of your company. So whenever I'm battling with an idea, or like, how do I handle this, I'll open up that book to see if there's a chapter on it. It usually kind of helps direct me in the right way, or if anything, it just kind of creates an opportunity for me to think creatively, like, oh well, maybe we need to do this, right? So those two books I recommend really support the EOS and the VTO type thing. So, but I think that's kind of it for today. Fernando, what do you think? You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, I think it was a really good topic. And
Mhm.
if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, like just try to implement this. It's really
Yeah.
cool. We recommend it. So yeah, thank you everyone for being in this episode with us. And we hope you like it. And yeah, see you in the next episode. Stay virtual. Thank you.